I'd like to call the Germantown School District Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting to order at 5 p.m. Roll call. Loth.
Here.
Voyer.
Here.
Trustee Borst.
Here.
And I am here. Before we move on, I just want to take a second to thank Trustee Cutts for her service to this committee over the past year or so. And I want to formally welcome Trustee Borst to the committee. You've joined at an interesting time as we are kicking off kind of a long and busy process with regards to our buildings and grounds work that we're going to be doing. So welcome.
Thank you.
Item number 3, agenda revisions and approval. Looking for a motion.
I will make a motion to approve the agenda with the following revision: to move new business item number 7 between items number 4 and 5.
We have a motion on the floor with an adjustment of moving new business from number 7 to between items 4 and 5. That's the approved minutes and reports and updates. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Voyer, second by Loth. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 4, the approval of the April 28th, 2025 meeting minutes. I'm looking for a motion.
Motion to approve meeting minutes.
We have a motion to approve the April
Second.
28th. And so Voyer with the motion, Loth with the second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is that adjusted item to our agenda, new business, hydroponic vegetable gardens at GHS.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. This is something that's very near and dear to my heart, very passionate about. The Food Nutrition Department is looking for the approval for the construction project modification of room A102. It's actually the classroom right as you walk into Germantown High School. You have the main offices on the left, and it's the first classroom on the right. And that's the classroom that we would like to actually transition into a hydroponic farm. We're looking at purchasing 10 flex farms. You actually received a packet, and this is what they look like. Each one has the ability to grow 25 pounds of produce every 28 days. So looking at partnering with the science department and the environmental club, and they are actually going to maintain them. They're going to grow all the plants, the produce, and then they're going to harvest it and deliver it to the cafeteria. So that produce, once we get it, that will be on the garden bars at each and every one of our schools throughout the district. So it's harvested once a week. We will transition like 3 units at a time. So super excited to bring that to the Finance Committee. But in order to get the project off the ground, the classroom needs to have a water supply. There's currently no water in the classroom. So I do have a scope of work that is also in your packet of things that we're going to need. We need additional electricity for each one of the farms. So we need to provide ceiling mounts, power for an ejector pump, because we're going to need a crock in there, because we're dealing with a lot of water. Each one of the units will actually hold 25 to 30 pounds of water. We will also have a reverse osmosis system that will also be like a 300-gallon tank of water that will be connected and going through the pipes to each of the flex farms, and that will continue to keep circulating. We need to have a floor drain in the plumbing, because we currently do not have any water supply or drains in there. So that's actually the most expensive part of the project. So we need permits, rough and final inspections, ground penetrating radar scan to determine the underground utilities, cut and dispose of 3 by 12 foot area of concrete floors and spoils, rough plumbing of drain, vents, water supply. We did find a cold water line in the ceiling, so that we're going to be able to pull from that. We're not going to run a hot water line, we're just going to put a booster heater in just to save some money. So We do need the sump and the crock, so we need the sewer grinder, along with fixture install, finished plumbing, concrete floor repair, and a wall-mounted, the water heater. Because we are dealing with so much water, we wanna look at putting an epoxy floor on there. So, right now, I'm looking at a total cost of $125,000 for the project. Almost 64,000 of that is actually for the purchase of the flex farms. The remaining 61,000 is for the construction, for the electrical, the plumbing, and the flooring. So if you actually turn the page after the scope of work for the hydroponic farms, there's actually a layout of what the room will actually look like. So when you come in, you'll have the crock, and the ejector pump off on the left, mop sinks, a reverse osmosis system that will be connected to all of our flex farms.
Okay, this one?
Yeah, it's on the back of it. So, and then we'll have some hurricane fans just to keep the air circulating in there. We want it around 65 to 70 degrees.
And Jill, can you share with the group, you took a team off-site?
Yes, David Smith, principal at the high school, and Mark McClellan, head of science. We actually took a field trip to Elmbrook School District. And they currently have 12 of these units. Their special education department is the ones that are actually maintaining them. But it was just a really cool setup, just seeing all the produce being grown. I recently found out, I thought we were more on the forefront of this, but there's currently about 800 schools that are currently doing the hydroponics right now throughout the state of Wisconsin. Milwaukee has it, Elmbrook, Schwabenoff, Holman, Franklin, so, but looking at starting out with 10 units. So this is phase 1. I would like to eventually go to a phase 2, which would be, as you walk in the doorway, and then there's a hurricane fan, is that the west wall? Would that be the west?
Furthest west wall.
Yep, so it'd be along the west wall. We would actually like to remove the lockers that are all along the hallway and actually put in a picture window. So it becomes like a showcase, so students, community members, anybody walking through the school will actually see this whole Flex Farm produce garden, which is pretty exciting. So, and the kids would be maintaining it, growing it. So there's a K-12 curriculum that actually comes along with the Flex Farms. So Mark will be implementing that into his program. So. Any questions that you would have? I did, in your packet, I did get 3 quotes for each of the areas. You are missing one from Hagen Plumbing. I'm still waiting for his, and Nelco was actually making an adjustment on theirs. But there is 3 available for plumbing, for electrical, and for the flooring. My goal, once it is approved at this level, that I would take it to the finance committee and the school board on the 16th.
Next Monday.
Yeah.
What did you say the output was?
Pardon me?
What did you say the output was on the produce?
It's 25 pounds per unit.
And that's every,
28
every
days.
28 days.
that is
Mhm.
amazing.
So our goal would be to get 75 pounds of, lettuce out of the units each week.
Do you have an
So we
idea
kind of
what the cost offset is then? What you save?
Currently, right now, we probably spend about $16,000 to $18,000 on lettuce a school year.
And that's if it shows
And
up
the-
in high quality,
That's
correct?
if it shows up, and I mean, a lot of it is getting tossed. I mean, most of it is coming out of California. And then when they harvest it, it's going to a plant where they chop it, they, process it, and they're putting, preservatives on it, so then they seal it in a bag. We open it, it's wet, it's damp, it lasts a day or two. The produce coming out of these flex farms, I've been told the produce, the lettuce will last 3 to 4 weeks because it's so fresh. And the quality is so much better, the taste.
And are you thinking strictly lettuce at this point, or what other produce?
We're gonna do some lettuce, we're gonna do some herbs on smaller little units, which are only like $90 on Amazon. We'll do herbs in the kitchen. My goal is to eventually do tomatoes, pea pods, cucumbers you can actually do in these units, in addition to like peppers. So that would be phase 2 to expand on these units. And the lifespan, I was told, is probably about 20 years on one of these units.
As far as room choice, I could see why you'd pick that room, a proximity to the cafeteria, I'm sure.
It's
And
right-
if you
it's-
want to showcase this later on, it's
Yeah.
part of the entryway, basically.
Mhm.
Expansion for units in there, does it have enough room in there? And
Yes.
this might be a frank question.
Yes.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, we could easily fit another 10, 15 in there. Mhm.
With working space, yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
And then on the curriculum side, I don't know if Jake's office has had a chance. Obviously,
Not yet.
well, I'm sure it's what we would all think it would be, but we just gotta make sure he's got
Yeah.
and Kim's committee's got a crack at it.
Yeah, it comes through formative. If you're familiar with that.
So, yeah, I would just hook up with his office at some point on it.
Mhm.
I think it's a great project. It's an interesting investment. Obviously, it's expensive, but could be.
The initial investment is expensive, but it does pay off, you know, years down the road. You know, and then the quality of the produce, the educational piece with the students actually growing the produce, the sustainability, water conservation, and so there's a
Absolutely.
huge educational piece on top.
Absolutely. Well, I'll stop hijacking there, I'll just say thanks for, and you would mention this is one of the projects in a previous meeting, and I appreciate you following through. It's more than just, let's grow some vegetables, right?
It's
so
a
I-
huge undertaking.
Appreciate your initiative in that, and then, sorry, have your meeting back, but.
Well, I'll bring it down a notch, I suppose. Um, So, I think I understood all of the layout, all of the equipment, the plumbing, the electric, all of that fun stuff. Worst case scenario, I think you mentioned that there was gonna be a container that could hold water. I
Mhm.
forget if it was 300 gallons, right?
3 to 350.
Okay.
100
And then obviously each one of these little farms has their
25
own.
to 30 gallons.
Okay. Worst case scenario, something happens, there's gonna be drainage in the floor and everything else, that's part of the plumbing piece, correct?
Yes,
So that,
a floor drain.
you know, obviously, that's gotta be one of those things.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's good. And then as far as the, I can't imagine, cause a lot of this is somewhat recycled, if not by far the majority of the water ends up kind of being recycled. So it's not necessarily a huge, you know, we're bringing in thousands of gallons, extra
Yep.
gallons of water on a regular basis. So once we've got this going, obviously there's evaporation and other scientific stuff that happens with water. So we need to replace that, but it sounds like, or it seems like it would be, there's gonna be more water use, but it's not gonna be something that would be so significant that
Yeah,
that's something.
Nothing significant. I did talk with Fork Farms, and they kind of looked at the wattage, cost per wattage here in the area. For all 10 units, it would maybe be $1,700 for the electricity, and those are running 24/7. So,
Other
Is
questions?
it 1,700 a year or?
1,700 a year, yeah, for cost of electricity.
So that would just be during the school year, correct? And then-
Correct.
So is there any kind of startup or maintenance as far as if you don't have them running for 3 months? Is there certain things that you have to do? You just
No.
shut them off and?
Nope, we
go
shut
into
them,
it?
we shut them down at the end of the year. Each of the panels come apart. You can, you know, disassemble them, and they can be run right through the dish machine. You know, and then another thought was down the road, once we have more units, could we have a program over the summer that the students, continue to grow produce? I mean,
Well-
we all have farmers markets in our communities.
Is this-
Now you're teaching them math, you're teaching them, business. Could we have a Warrior Farmers Market,
Well-
where we're selling produce?
I was just gonna mention the fact that Village of Germantown has their farmers market, that I wouldn't be surprised if we could partner with them at some point, that if that's the direction that we go.
Mhm.
I know a guy on the commission, so I could always take that to Park and Rec, so.
Got a guy.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, just put a template.
I do have one other question, I guess. Humidity? And Frank, this might be in your alley. Do we know what we're dealing with there? The mold side would worry me a
Yep,
little bit.
yeah, that was kind of my foremost. I think I asked it 2 or 3 times
You did, didn't you?
with them, and they have said they have had no issues with any humidity, and there would not be any added HVAC necessary. So I'm taking their word for it. Obviously, all of it is encapsulated or tanked, so to say. But if we do realize it, or if we do see, additional rusting on grids and stuff like that, then we might need to take a look at, air turnover and
Yeah.
see what we can do to help. But
If it goes forward, I would just really make sure it's on a punch list somewhere too.
sure, definitely.
Keep an eye on it. It probably isn't. I don't fully understand, and maybe I gotta take the class myself on hydroponics, but.
Well,
uh,
next week, if this does go to the finance committee, if you do motion it to go there, I do have Josh Malik and Nina Loomis, and they're representatives of Fork Farm, so they were gonna come and do a presentation.
Perfect. Thank you.
Pardon me?
Was the ceiling tiles part of that? I was just gonna mention.
Ceiling tiles,
We're gonna swap out the room with moisture-resistant ceiling tiles as well. I think you'd have in a restroom or something just to help any sort of moisture escape the room itself. But that's a very low cost. I think we even have enough in-house right now that we can do it, so
Sure.
just as an additive.
And we've never had water issues in our building, so.
This is me now laughing.
Any other questions from the committee or board?
I don't know if we could do it or not, but I think maybe a door sill for the doorway. So if there is a leak in the room, it doesn't right away go out in the hallway and,
Blow some tile up.
Yeah, because that's all new flooring right there too.
I think if we can do a door sill and, hopefully the water all drains to the, floor drains, but who knows, And I think it could be done without limiting a wheelchair access. I don't
Right.
think we'd be violating, for a, I don't know,
Just enough.
half inch or something.
Yep.
3/4, I don't know what they are.
It's just over half inch. Depending on the way of the floor, but yeah, that's an awareness.
And that was one of the conversations that we had with Fork Farms, is like, okay, how often do they leak? And did he say they've
They've
never
one
had
to their
an
knowledge.
issue? So, the floor drains there just in the event. Knock on wood.
Sell some records, yeah.
But,
And break some
I'll
windows.
bet we can test that.
I'm gonna cut off conversation here
Yeah.
pretty soon. Any other questions?
Will the farms be turned on or off during like spring break and other breaks from school?
we're gonna keep them going.
Okay, and will
Yeah.
somebody, because I know the produce grows so quickly, so if you're
Mhm.
off for a week, is there somebody that will be there harvesting it?
Probably myself.
Okay.
Or if any of the students want to volunteer. Because usually they become very passionate about this.
Yeah.
That it becomes their baby,
Mhm.
so, if not, it'll be myself, or knowing we can change the way the harvest is. There's a schedule that we will create
Mm-hmm.
when we want things to be harvested.
Got it. Okay.
So we could always, change that up with the holidays.
Yeah. Sounds good. Thank you.
Sure.
Is Fork Farms the only provider of hydroponic farms for schools, or is there? a couple
That's the
different-
only one I'm familiar with that the schools are using. If there is hydroponics going on within schools, it's pretty much Fork Farms. I can research more.
Oh, no, you don't, as long as obviously they know what they're doing, and there's 800 around there. we're just wondering if it's getting to be a bigger market, if it's getting more popular in the schools, they're gonna start. I'm sure it's not an easy venture to take on to start a food farm.
Any other questions?
Project completion for next year would be the goal to start the school year,
This
or?
would be ready to go in September,
Okay.
first day of school.
Any other questions?
Sorry. I have so many.
I know. All right, if there is none, I'd be looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion with a positive recommendation to the Finance Committee to approve the construction project of Classroom A-102 and the purchase of 10 Fork Farm Flex units for hydroponic vegetable gardens at GHS with a not-to-exceed cost of $125,000, funded from the food and nutrition budget.
Second?
We have a motion on the floor by Voyer, second by Vorst. This is to take this with a positive recommendation to the Finance Committee. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay, moving back up to our agenda, item 5, reports and updates. Work order completion report. Mr. Lord.
Thank you. Yeah, so as the Buildings and Grounds Department utilizes Dude Solutions to schedule and track all forms of recordable maintenance throughout the district, I have this one turned into a 4-month, 5-month, is it? Which has kind of been a biannual. I think that has been working out pretty well, just for upkeep and kind of checking in to see how the work order system is going. This work order completion dates are from December 2nd to June 4th of 2025. This followed the day after the last update, just to be clear with that. And since then, there's been, as a general overview, we have 782 completed work orders between these dates. 68% of the work orders were completed in less than 1 week. 5 work orders were completed after or beyond 60 days, 60 days or beyond, I should say. And the priority ratio turned out to be 1 emergency, 1 high, 777 medium, and 3 low. And with the emergency, I think if I recall correctly, I'm not so sure that was an emergency, but as I've kind of stated in the past, the emergencies really typically get handled via phone, radio, text, etc. So we'll follow up and enter them, but at that point, we usually don't put them in as an emergency. The 60 days and beyond, just to follow up, since there's just 5 on this one. I shouldn't say just 5, we want that to be a 0, but with the variables, again, some of them are just some little bit larger projects that were done over break or waited for winter break, or even I think there was a couple for spring break. So the only other one that I believe was much longer, we had turnover in our maintenance department. It was completed, never closed out, and then completed, actually I believe it was completed in May, if I'm not mistaken. Because that one came in and opened my eyes a little bit, so. Otherwise, it's seems to be pretty heavy on the medium needs or priority scale. Nothing as far as a massive jump out to me or disruption. I think as far as a 68%, I believe we went up 1% within the completion of 1 week, which is very solid. I want to say the benchmark right now within the state or Midwest is somewhere right around anywhere between 64% and 72%, with facilities our size or district our size. So.
Yeah, one of the 60 plus actually was an early request in the school year to have something done during Christmas break, which it was. So
Yeah.
take that with a grain of salt as far as those numbers are concerned.
Yeah, I thought about displacing those or deferring them, but the problem is when you do that, they come off your radar, and then, I'm liable for bringing them back forward. But
Well, with the request, it explicitly had said, so it's. Any questions, comments from the committee on this report?
Is this, can we look at this, a report like this once a month? I'm not real happy looking at 6 months worth of this stuff. You know, there's 77 pages here for building and grounds. You know, it looks like a monthly vouchers report to me. You know, I'd rather look at this once a month and have the meeting once a month than look at 6 months worth of this. You know, it's hard to do it justice, if we're looking at a half a year's worth at a time.
Frank is nodding, so.
What's
we-
that?
Yeah,
Frank is
oh, sorry,
nodding, so
yeah.
we, I heard
No,
it.
that's not a problem. I've always liked to extend them a little bit, just because it helps with, as far as the numbers on our side and seeing, you know, what's up and what's down versus a one month might be slower than the next. So, but if we're not concerned with
Here-
that, that's more or
We're
less
not
my,
gonna beat you up for that.
thank you,
Here-
but I'm
here's-
definitely happy.
Here's actually,
I mean,
No, I think that's,
it's not a lot of extra work doing it once
No.
a month, is it? It's kinda like,
not at all.
there's just less to it
Yeah.
once a month.
well, here's what I would throw out there. The completion report for sure during our monthly meetings. But then also, and you guys can throw out a number, certainly anything that's 60 days open. So that's on our radar too. We may want 30 days too, or 45 days, something that's getting close to being the 60 plus. One of those type of numbers, that in that way you can see what we've completed, but also anything that's, you know, been out there for a while, so that
Sure.
it won't be a surprise the next month or a couple months later.
Definitely.
I'm curious about the sulfur smell coming out of the sink in the high school somewhere. I think I've lost it now, where my place was, but do you know anything, or do you remember anything?
We've
about
had
it?
a few of those at the high school and actually Kennedy over this winter, more than the past couple of winters, and I don't know if it was just the dryness, but we had a lot. Most of all of it was just dry P traps and things that we had to dump water down. So there's a few of them on there. They turn into gas, you know, right away and things of that nature. But we actually just had one last week, Monday or Tuesday, but we were able to take care of it before it got bad right as all the units kicked on in the morning, so it spread out throughout the building.
Just put some water
Yeah.
down the particular
Yeah.
drain or whatever happens.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Any other questions or comments?
Can't think of any.
Okay, thank you for that. Item 5B, Facilities Condition Assessment Priority Level 1 Crosswalk. Mr. Lord.
So as discussed at the April Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting, staff created a crosswalk of the priority level 1 items listed within the Facilities Condition Assessment, the FCA. The crosswalk identifies each issue item from the FCA priority level 1 list, breaks down the area, breaks down the area of concern, whether it's in the building, on the grounds, or other, which I think there are very few of, but it does happen, and outlines a classification for future planning and or completion per site, which I believe we talked about per location as well. So we broke this down into the planning classification as GSD maintenance, which is the in-house repairs, projects, work requests, etc. Contract services, which is repairs that will contract out or might turn into small minor projects, replacements, projects, etc. Repeat. 5 to 10 year capital planning. Current and near future capital improvements. There's a few that do overlay, well, several that overlay with our current 5-year right now, but there are some that I put on there as the 5 to 10 year because just depending on the priority within, you know, a day to day, they might move up and swap out others that we may have had on for next year or the year after. So, and then we have following the long range planning, which this is the alignment of the needs, repairs, replacements, etc. With long-term visions and objectives. So things that are there, not necessarily an immediate need on our side, but part of a full encompassment once we were to potentially do a larger project, a renovation in a section, or a classroom overhaul over an entire wing type of thing. That's where a lot of the ADA things came in. They're not necessarily safety concerns. We have not had any concerns with any of them since I've been here. We do address them as they come up the best that we can. But a lot of them are just the industry standards, so it, those all typically clump together, like the door handles and things of that nature.
It's we're technically compliant from before.
Correct.
And if we do any major work,
That would be the
then
topic. Yes.
those new rules come into play
Yep.
for us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The priority level 1 crosswalk is intended to assist with the overall planning and prioritizing, as well as serving as a roadmap for the district building tours, as discussed at the previous meeting as well. So you can see here, I did do the color coding just to kind of help break them up within per site. Then you'll see the X's showing the area, as I referred to, and the issue items are pretty much a copy paste of what the issues and items were on that facilities condition assessment. Basically went through each one, several I had to look at in person, but a lot of them with the books that we received showing the pictures of the issues between ceiling tiles and things missing. And I basically just cross-matched and prioritized that way as far as the planning classification went to help this entire process moving forward. I think, I mean, overall, looking at it, I think you'll see, I mean, we do have quite a bit of green on there. I know we had talked about things that we can take care of in-house. A work order has not been submitted for each and every one of these as of yet, but this is definitely something that will be prioritized from my end to submit them in ongoing projects per site, whether it's something we need maintenance to do versus in-house custodian. And again, the long-range planning, you'll see a lot of that is kind of a repetitive housekeeping stuff and things that aren't necessarily a operation issue.
Mr. Ewert.
So long-range planning, so I'm looking at here, long-range planning is yet to be determined. If I'm looking at this, if I'm a citizen and I look at this report, I have capital improvement, fully understand that, we have a 5-year cycle of that.
Yep.
Given this is a 20-year outlook, or a 10-year outlook, the facilities use study is.
Yep.
So we have 2 cycles of capital improvement. We can prioritize some of the items off this, which it looks like you have
Yep.
already pulled in. Contracted services are services we are already currently contracted for, meaning that those are planned expenses already?
That would be not a planned expense necessarily. I mean, it would be part of the ongoing Fund 10 for operations. As far as maintenance goes, this can definitely be included, or will be included as part of that. I guess the decipher there is that these are more or less those phone calls out when budget or as budget permits in forecast moving forward to this year, and I did discuss that.
But out of the normal budgetary process?
Correct.
Yes.
Usually, as we get towards the end of the fiscal year,
Yep.
we build a
Yeah.
spring.
I just want to see what's included in our normal
Yeah.
budgetary process and planning process, right? Capital improvement, this contracted services fits under that. The GSD maintenance, that's our day-to-day budgetary process, right? Current operational standards.
Yes.
So then the long-range stuff is the balance due, right? If I'm a citizen, I look at this and go, what's the balance due of this report that says there's $70 million in
Right.
maintenance costs? We haven't really gotten into the other fact that that $70 million is also built out of worst-case scenario
Correct.
costs, right? Versus probably other solutions, right? that
Absolutely.
Could be tackled.
Yeah, there's a lot of those on this long range, and there are. It's what compiles long range planning, or project lists, is those things that are not necessarily an immediate priority, but they can be listed as a priority per industry standard.
Yep. So I get, in that regard, and kind of understanding that context, I'm hesitant to say, show me of the 70 million, what's taken care of in the planning process and normal budgetary process, and what's the balance due, because we know that 70 million isn't a true. It's, the number's technically lower than that. That's, like I said, the worst case scenario for every project under the list. What's the best path for you guys forward to help project that information out, so our community understands that? And that's probably not I'm not looking for an answer on that right now, but I think we need to
Well, and I
be
think-
able to make that information out.
So this is, this is the first go at the crosswalk of the 1,100-page report,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So the way I had advised Frank to put this together were in these buckets. So when we start on July 1st on building tours, we can use this as a roadmap versus 1,100 pages and say, okay, we already understand the 5-year capital because Frank brings those things here, you approve that. But what are some of these long-range things? What does it mean at Amy Bell with ceiling tile XZ? And we can look at and go, this is something we got to plan for long range. But I think to your point, Mr. Ewert, we have to break these down in those buckets of what the projected dollar cost is for each color-coded area per building and then district-wide. Because to your point, when JP Cullen and PRA came to present their findings, if anyone wants to go back to that meeting, they talked about, this is, to your point, worst case scenario. We need caulk right there, whatever it might be. So it's not a true dollar amount that we have to have $70 million of repair in the next 3 to 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, I think this is a perfect document to place with, if you choose to post this. Full facilities use study at some point, which hopefully that's the case. I'll be honest, as president of the full board, I would really like to see that. We've already had citizens asking for it. But we know there's some safety stuff, not, shouldn't say safety, some security stuff in there that has to be redacted and kept in-house. But a large portion of this isn't security. However, just the report itself, without the planning process behind it and the operational steps forward, can be a misleading document as well.
And I think that plays hand in hand with our board meeting next Monday night, where I'm going to be presenting the findings from MD Roffers. You all have the report, but they are working with me to build a consolidated presentation. Unfortunately, neither of the partners can be there that night because they already had pre-planned things, but we're working hopefully with the village to have them come to a plan commission meeting and present with myself and Mr. Ewert so they can answer broader questions related to their findings. So that report will be in our packet on Monday night, and I can connect into that how Frank's report here, those two things work hand in hand with decision making down the road.
I think we, as long as we find a home on our page
Yep.
for it, but we need to provide context to everything.
I think so after that meeting, I'll advise the board on how I think that could look on our website in the context, but I'm waiting to get all the information versus piecemeal because it's very easy with large reports like that to cherry pick certain things to your point without context.
Okay.
So Frank has job security is what this says, because we've got a laundry list of things that, it's normal maintenance of, we have 7 sites, right? So we have full of people every day.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at least some of this, I'm still kind of high level because obviously without actual theoretical costs behind this and really kind of what's more important, this item, that item. Ultimately, when I look at this, I think it's a great start. It gives that perspective, because one of the things I was curious about was what could we do in-house versus what we would have to contract out. I think that's your basic starting point because, in theory at least, replacing something or doing some of those GSD maintenance items, it's just normal everyday operations. Obviously, there's still cost, there's still time, all that kind of stuff, but if we can do it in-house, automatically it's in theory cheaper versus the contracted where obviously we need to pull in people who know how to repair this, replace this, those type of things. This too, with Brittany's help in the it's listed here as a 5 to 10 year capital planning. Obviously, those typically always occur on a regular basis, like roofing and for instance, and other major work. And those are bigger dollar amounts technically. We've already started kind of saving for that with that separate fund. The part that I'm still trying to wrap my head around because these are much bigger, at least in theory, bigger projects in some cases, is that long range planning and what does that really mean? Because I think that's where where this committee and the board are gonna have to really, and with citizen input too, really sit down and go, okay, this line item, we're doing this versus, I can't remember where I found it, but the water heating plant or something is too small for the size of the school, or however it was listed.
Yep.
Well, that feels like a big project with a lot of money behind it. What's the trade-off if we build that out? The enrollment report will play into that, because if that's at a particular school that we can see may have an extra 50, 100, whatever numbers.
Users every day, yeah.
Then all of a sudden, to Dr. Reuter's point, now we're actually getting the context of, okay, that number means something to us versus, well, we have enough money to do one or the other. Well, we're gonna have more users in 10 years versus this is a little bit more of a nice to have, so what do we do with that? So I think what will help, a few things, actually seeing some of this stuff, because I can read it, but I'm one of those guys where it helps, because I'm not always the handiest with some of these things, or obviously it's commercial versus residential. So seeing it, starting to have some sense of numbers, and obviously Brittany will work with you to kind of come up with some of that, will give us context, because the budget and what we can do and those type of things. So, like I said, great starting point. The long-range planning is where we're kind of that little butterflies in the stomach, is the rest of the stuff that seems pretty standard. Seems like, okay, maybe we weren't doing it, we should start doing it. Or to Frank's point, a lot of the 5-year capital plan items that were already out there that we've approved, surprise, surprise, are falling in the same spots that we got from the report. So that builds a little confidence that we were already doing some of those things, if not most of those things that we need to do, which should be some comfort to us, but also to the general public as well, as far as the planning piece. Any thoughts from the other? I'm going to go to the committee first. Any other thoughts, questions, comments on the committee before I expand it?
No, I don't think so.
Mr. Ewert?
I just wanted to echo the end of what you were talking about there. I think it's a credit to your staff and the maintenance staff as a whole, planning staff, administration. A lot of the big ticket items were already in the pipeline. So it wasn't like this report was some massive surprise to us on these big ticket items. We have a lot of little things to check off and figure out, to your point. But I think it's a lot of the decision-making that went into ESSER dollars and air conditioning. We would have loved to put it in all of the elementary schools, and instead the dollars were there to affect one school. So we put it into the middle school, which all students are going to flow through at some point.
As
and
well,
I
it's
think-
open to students in the summer months, right?
Yes,
So-
correct. But just all of that, right?
Yep.
So this isn't, I think some people in the community are taking this as like a big shock report of, oh my God, there's all this stuff to tackle. And it's, the point of this crosswalk is actually, the bulk of it is already been in the pipeline in some form or fashion, or at least in a topic of discussion. So
Well, I think
we're in a good spot.
I think it helps. I mean, there's nothing wrong with getting an extra set of eyes who aren't, no offense, Frank, who aren't in the
None.
buildings all the time, seeing the stuff, and you know, you kind of you see the obvious stuff when a boiler starts leaking, for instance. No surprise there that there's a problem, but sometimes it does help, especially getting. Mr. Loth has brought this up in the past, getting above the ceiling tiles and actually taking a look at that stuff, the guts behind it all. You know, I'm sure there's probably a few things that Frank, when you were looking at it, go, oh, thank God that's on there now, because I never would have thought that. And there's nothing wrong with it. That's
No.
just the reality of it when you're this deep into things. So, no, I mean, it's the more, even though it's 2 binders that are about this big, I should have brought them in just for the dramatic effect. But even though it's that much stuff, the more I get into it, the more I start looking at this, the happier I am that we spent the money to do this, because it's probably bringing up some things that should have been on our radar, that is now on our radar, that we can do proper planning for, which I think is ultimately the key to this in the grand scheme of things. Any other comments, questions before we move on?
I got a couple things. So throughout the report, there are a number of undefined acronyms in there. Some I know what they are, some I don't. So it'd be nice if those got defined. And then just starting off with Amy Bell here, I don't see right at the beginning above ceiling note on many of these. I don't see an above ceiling note anywhere, and I think I know what the note is. It's probably unsupported wires and debris all over the place, but there isn't a above ceiling note supporting that. So when I started off reading this, you know, I kind of looked around and I'm like, am I just missing it, or is it not there? And I'm pretty sure it's not there.
Just, yeah, I think after contracted services, they start noting above ceiling note, Amy Bell, but to your point, Mr. Loth,
There's no note.
there's no note in the first 8 boxes,
Right.
but then as you scroll down, in the other categories there is, so
Yeah,
we can take a look at that.
there was enough stuff above the ceiling. I think,
Yeah,
you know, one thing I had heard, it was a previous board member, I think the school district hired his sons, this is before my time on the board, to remove unused wiring above ceiling panels. And I believe his sons were getting it done too fast, so they got kicked out of the school, you know, making the regular staff not look good. So I think there was an attempt once in the high school to get some of this done, and I think an overriding thing that appears to happen in our schools is, you know, if new cameras are installed or new Ethernet wiring, things keep getting added, but none of the old that might not be used anymore gets removed. It's maybe just the way it is, so it comes under there's no money in cleanup, and cleaning up is removing the old stuff that's not being used, and including plumbing, so I detected some plumbing pipe that was still there.
yeah,
No
there's
longer.
a lot of times with larger projects, when it comes to demo, though, it comes at a cost. And
Yeah.
when they do clocks, they'll leave the wiring, because then it's another 15 to 20,000 then to take out. Typically, that's something I've always liked to just remove up right away, build the cost in at the time, but I was not always, it has never been the standard in any public school I've been in, so.
Right,
It's a dicey lifting up any ceiling tiles.
so yeah, it's not your fault, I'm not yelling at
no,
you, it's
right.
just kinda, I'm just stating what I think is the obvious to you and maybe us, but not the general public. Another item was, or when there's a letter and a three-digit number, is that always a classroom, or is it sometimes is it a building column number? Cause as I read through this, I wasn't really sure what I was looking at, you know, if it was building column identification or if it was room number. So it'd be, if both are used, cause in some cases, it didn't seem like it was a classroom number, particularly in the high school. So I'd kinda like to know if it's a column, that maybe it'd be labeled as a column, you know, versus a room number.
Yeah,
Then we know what we're looking at.
I wanna say that the majority definitely is classrooms, closets, maintenance rooms and things of that nature also come with their own, number, and typically a C or a T. But I'll look on that and clean it up a little bit. I was able to find all of them I'm well referenced with most of them, but, they got, some of these reports are on the report, got pretty shorthand. And like I said, these are pretty much a copy paste. With those other ones, I should have, or could have, probably put the reference number. I just didn't know if that was gonna be beneficial in this case, cause they were kind of a lower end.
Yeah, I guess
Contract service.
that's another one too. I thought there might have been some reference numbers in there to the bigger report. It
Yep.
was kinda hard to tell
Sure.
if it was a reference number or a classroom, so that might be nice to know. Also, just a general question on, when it says building does not have a generator, is the intent of a generator ultimately emergency lighting, server and refrigeration is kept up, or
Yep.
what's the intent?
Yeah,
did
that
I-
and
did
some
I cover
plumbing,
it?
some plumbing as well.
Okay.
Since we do have automatic flushers and a lot of, like, the high school has quite a few. But a lot of those also have battery backup, so it's not the end of the world not to have.
And I think, is the high school the only one with a generator right now?
Rockfield.
Rockfield and Kennedy.
Yeah, and we,
Rock,
What?
Rockfield and Kennedy have?
6 weeks ago, had Rockfield and the high school went out of power
Yep.
because of a car accident.
Yep.
They're on the same grid, and
Yep.
within, at first, everyone went, oh my goodness, because all the lights went off and everything. And it took just a little bit, because the generators hadn't been run to power up, and it just kept moving on, and then the power came back on an hour later, so.
So, emergency lighting, is that one light typically per classroom, or?
It's actually, I was extremely surprised on what coverage we did have. Given what we have set at the high school and even Kennedy with the building automation system, the lighting hallway-wise was not, I mean, it wasn't much different. I was really impressed with that. Rockfield is very well lit as well. Kennedy had one, I'll just say we had a couple of restrooms that definitely needed some additional lighting.
Yeah, I think with LEDs these days, we could almost light
That's
the
where you
whole
could-
school.
Yeah.
Potentially. So we're not, are we not running the generators, once a week?
Yeah, they're programmed once a week.
Okay, so it seems like it shouldn't have taken too long for them to come
I think
up.
it didn't take too long, it just
It's
took
the panic
longer
when
than
you-
people thought, because it's
Feels
a
like you're
panic
turning
when
it.
you're full of a school.
Yeah, it's
And all
usually-
the lights go out.
Yeah.
Usually about a minute or
Yeah,
so.
it did the full switch over within its 45 to 50 seconds.
Yeah,
The only couple of issues we had were there were a couple UPS backups that we found that are no longer. And those
Back
are
in.
actually, I believe those are already replaced. So
yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah, so I mean, by rights, our generators should get 52 hours per year plus, power outage
Mhm.
time, which is very limited. Well, I don't know, with We Energies, you never know. Somebody was looking at me kind of funny there. I always have to bring up We Energies, right?
Yeah, we
When there's
appreciate it.
someone here. So then the next one, I don't know what year it was, but there was a certain point in time where we, I believe we redid all doorknobs, switched them all over to door handles, door levers, and new locks. So I was surprised to see any doorknobs in this report at all.
Sure.
So are the doors with doorknobs, round doorknobs, are they like in odd, out of the way places that they got missed when we did this work probably 10 years ago?
I did reference back to that, and no, actually a lot of the cylindricals got replaced at that time. And that's partially why the long term came in, is because they were technically still good and usable, and still are. They're very expensive and durable hardware, but most of them are not on classroom doors. They're on
Yeah.
offices and closets of natures, and a lot of that is listed on there, connected to classrooms. But almost
Might be an
all, as you
internal
can see
door.
in the halls, you'll see lever handles. Given maybe a here and there that was missed, but they all had to get moved in order to fit our new core system, or replaced to fit our new
Yeah,
core system.
yeah.
So
So do these still have to be replaced, or they were just noted here?
they were just noted as an ADA because it is not a lever, but like Brad said, we're technically, it's not even a grandfather, we technically don't need it there, but the industry standard is just to have straight levered handles
Right,
everywhere, you know.
right. Okay,
Can I jump in? I have a
Sure.
follow-up on that.
sure.
I noticed some of the knob-style access are listed as GSD maintenance, and others are under long-term planning. So are there plans to replace some of them in-house sooner than later, and then the rest kinda go to the bottom of the list?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to look where that might be.
Like Rockfield.
Um,
Rooms 131 and 132 are under GSD maintenance, and then 134 is listed as long-range planning.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just taking a look right here. I did have a few that were more repairs than they were replacement of per ADA, but if I made a mistake on the ADA. Uh, 140.
Yeah, and we don't need to hold up the meeting for that.
No, that's fine, I'm
specific
sorry, I'm
item.
trying to justify it, but, it may have been my own error, otherwise most of them were things that I know of that needed to be replaced, for lack of function. And it might very well be the fact that they're on a classroom, that we're not replacing, I thought it was a good idea at the time for us to replace them. So in that case, we would purchase the lock set and in-house we would replace it.
Okay.
That's the best I can do without fully.
I think the only thing I have yet is, it might be nice to put on the list for Amy Bell, that the parking lot across the street from the school is gravel, and that was a construction lot, you know, for the referendum. We were allowed to keep it for overflow, but, you know, when there's school events, I don't know how many cars get parked over there when there's a school event.
It might even be used at times. I park there because
Yeah.
that parking lot is so small that with all our staff, there's usually only 3 or 4 spots open.
Okay.
And if parents are there to pick up their kid or something, for sure those visitor spots are full, so.
Or full, yeah. So what I'm getting at is, we were allowed to keep the lot for overflow, but we didn't have the dollars to pave it, so I think I'd like to see it on the list. Whether it's a 5 to 10 year, I'm not sure, but I think, we should try and pave that lot, you know, so it's not a gravel lot. As long as we were allowed to keep it, we should probably pave it, so we're assured we can keep it.
Sure, and it looks
you know.
nicer too.
And you know, the Richfield was okay with it being there and gravel, we just didn't really have the money to finish it from the referendum era.
We look into Richfield's requirements too. If they have a requirement on whether a lot can be gravel or has to be hard surfaced, or if there's a square footage that flips a switch in it, or.
I am not personally aware of any that I've been notified about. I know we do try and keep it cleared, as best we can even during the winter, just to have it, but I mean, all around it would be better for the use even of that, let's say shelter, the pavilion, thank you. And they could probably utilize it even more so if we did have some more pavement over there.
Yeah, I mean, gravel can be a trip hazard unto itself, so I think it would be good if we could get it paved at some point in time.
Yeah.
I think, also, I saw somewhere, I don't remember which building it was, pneumatic controls, those should probably be moved up on the list for, replacements.
Yeah, it's something to add tiers on that. 5 to 10 year versus long range due to the, you know, costs and, if it's running
Yeah,
well yet or not.
yeah.
You know, the old, if it's not broke, don't touch it technically, so. But
You never
absolutely.
know.
Yeah, that's true.
Anything else? Okay. That was information item only. Moving on to item 5B, building tour scheduling and dates.
Yeah, so we moved to the second Tuesday of the month, starting July 1st. And with talking with Mr. Lord, I think it's important that we consistently have a buildings and grounds committee meeting on that second Tuesday of the month. And I wanted to get some feedback on the structure, because if we're going to spend time in our buildings utilizing this tool to look at some of these specific pieces for maintenance and upgrades, but also still have a live meeting, there's 2 ways we could go about it. We could convene at a building and have quorum, but no decision making, and go on a tour that's gonna be more specific than maybe what we've done in the past, and then come back here and call a meeting to order. There could be reports and updates to discuss what we saw, or it could just be a tour, and then we come back here and go through our normal monthly business. Or we schedule a whole different night, because there's getting the meetings videoed for the public to see that discussion and see the other business, but then we also have other committees that fall on that night, so that night could get very long if we're at a building for over an hour, and then we come back here for an hour buildings and grounds meeting with travel time, and then with our other committees, which in the summer don't maybe run as frequently. For sure, we probably won't have personnel that night, because that's our new HR director's first day. I'm wanting to stay a while, so I don't know that we call a meeting on his first night, but I wanted to bring that up, as we've done it in the past on Saturdays, and then we've done it on weeknights, and it's a different night than other committees. So just thinking about everyone's schedule and commitment, how we can make that work. I wanted to just throw that out there for conversation this evening.
So I think it would be very difficult to do, because of required starting times. I mean, people have jobs and everything else, that they may not be able to get to a building for a tour to kick off the evening until 5 o'clock. And then, to your point, this committee nights might go until 10, 11 o'clock at night in theory. When I was thinking about this, to make sure that we stay consistent with what we've been doing with regards to recording and making sure that the public is very well aware of this, I struggled to, unless it was another night other than Tuesday, or we did something different, I thought it would be very difficult for us to just do it all on Tuesday. I tried to think, well, what makes sense as far as the logistics of it all, as far as if we go to Amy Bell for the tour, I'll put it this way, either focusing on one school or multiple schools versus where do we have the meeting. I know sometimes it can be very difficult to get the equipment and everything else over to an Amy Bell to actually do the tour, have a meeting there, rather than having to travel around back here or to PC or wherever. I kind of kept going to the fact that if we wanted to get this done, whatever we define done is, by the end of the summer or shortly after, we have to have more frequent meetings, whatever they look like, between now and then. Once a month, it's going to be very difficult to get all of that stuff done.
We could have our scheduled Tuesday night meeting that's regular business and discussion of the tour if we had the week prior on a Tuesday night. That's 5 o'clock start at a building, and we stay concise to, we're looking at these things.
Right.
If you want to see more, call me and I'll be happy to take you on a tour in the summer. But then that gives us the week before of the visual, of what's in the report. The following week, then at the formal meeting, there can be discussion on what we saw and feedback to Frank and myself. As well as I spoke with JP Collins, Vice President, this weekend, and he said that they, as long as we have a schedule, they would work to possibly have someone from their team join our tour to point out and talk through things. Not that Frank can't do that, but they were the ones who did the assessment.
Well, yeah, I mean, that would be fantastic,
Yeah.
I think. I mean, ultimately, it's this committee that is the most important to make those Tuesday meetings work. Everybody else obviously is welcome, be beneficial for everybody, I'm sure. I think that's probably the way that it's gonna have to be done. I think too, most everybody, not speaking for anybody else, but my opinion is that most everybody else appreciates the concept of taking the tour, reviewing information, whatever that is, and having a little bit of time to digest it before we actually formally meet and discuss it, rather than tour, hey, let's discuss what we just saw, and sometimes it's gonna be overwhelming, because wherever we're looking at, we're probably gonna spend a little extra time on this, that, or the other, those long range, planning items. So, I mean, what are others' thoughts on that. I suppose let's start in general here. Generally speaking, do Tuesdays, every Tuesday, work best for the committee?
Yeah, personally.
Right, we can decide start time. I think 5 o'clock would be the earliest I think we could start, but generally, obviously it's summertime, so inevitably one of us is probably gonna miss a Tuesday here or there, but obviously board, hopefully you guys can join us during that time. The other piece is just, this is the public's opportunity. If they haven't already taken advantage of the tours that we've offered, this is their chance to really be able to see that stuff that they might be interested in. So that would be the other thing, is just making sure that, put it out on Facebook. We do, we do the things that we normally do, maybe take an extra step or two to make people aware of those items, because it's a lot of money that we're gonna end up talking about over time, and we're gonna have to figure this out, and people can, when we're on the tour, it's less formal, so as we're walking between point A to point B, this is their opportunity to kind of ask questions and talk to us about it, and share their priorities, like, why the heck would we do this when we can do this other thing, or whatever. So those are a couple of my thoughts on things. Anybody else?
I think 2 Tuesdays in a row would work.
Okay.
As far as the time commitment, not too concerned about it. Once we're here, right? So to me, it doesn't matter how long it takes, we're kind of set for this evening. I'm not expecting to go home and rebuild an engine after this meeting, or after these meetings tonight, if you know what I mean. So yeah, it'd be fine. From a historical sense, the building committee chair from up to about 10 years ago used to always have the building committee on a different night than the board meeting, and it was about a 3-hour meeting. So it was as long or longer than the board meeting, and once he was no longer on the board, I was shocked that a building committee meeting could be handled in 1 hour on the same night as a board meeting. So I'm saying this kind of joking, but I'm used to, at least about the first 3 years or so, building committee meetings were a separate meeting, and they were as long as the board meeting. So it's not that big of a deal to me if the meeting becomes twice a month and it's a little bit longer, so
Well,
we get this done.
I think the concern was when we have the other committee meetings also that same night.
Yeah.
That's the
I have to run. I have to be at the village in 20 minutes or so. I've been vocal on this, guys, make it work for the team, the 4-person team, administration, to get those done. I think if you do that, you can probably get 2 buildings in a night. So you have 6 schools, and we're in this one once or twice a month anyways for our meetings. So just the conversation around the administration building is not nearly as large as these other buildings. And we see it, we're here enough. But if you can get two buildings in for each of those extra, right, it'll pare down. It doesn't have to be 1 building per tour night. And then the rest of us just, if we can work it in and get there, do it, or we're gonna trust this team of 4 and the administration and Frank's to bring the information forward, because that's the task you've been handed. If you guys can get that done, that's fantastic. If it's done before the end of the summer, that would be fantastic.
Then I'll create a proposed schedule and send it to the building committee before the end of the week to get your feedback, and then update the full board, and then we'll make that public.
Any other thoughts or questions?
I would add one thing. I would just say, I think, Mike, you said you're okay with 2 Tuesdays a month. I just don't think with this amount of workload, 2 would be enough. I mean, if there was a way that we could all figure it out and communicate, where we have, our building and grounds meeting, and then those other Tuesdays, we come with a plan of attack, we can just cover a lot more ground quicker. So, I mean, if it's one of those things where it's gonna be time heavy, but every Tuesday except for our building and grounds meeting, we were at Amy Bell that day, checking off ABC. We might be able to knock this out much quicker.
Yeah.
I mean, I
And we
understand
may,
not
to Russ's
everyone-
point, do elementary, when we did this
Yeah.
2 years ago, Jeff, we did we did the high school one Saturday.
Yeah.
The middle school another Saturday because they're our biggest, but
Yeah.
then we took County Line and MacArthur one day
Mhm.
and Amyville and Rockfield or something to that effect.
And I know my Tuesdays are my Saturdays, so I understand not everybody has a Tuesday, Saturday, but, you know, I think between us, we can figure something out that works and cover a lot of ground.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of assumed that when we talked about multiple buildings that we do 2 elementaries, 2
Mhm.
elementaries, and then the middle, because the high school and the middle school
Yeah,
are,
so, right,
Yeah.
that's 4
It's-
Sat Tuesdays.
yeah, yeah. So, I think we're gonna be okay ultimately, it's just laying it out on a calendar and just
Mhm.
making sure, so.
I will send that to the committee before the end of the week.
Last call, anything else on this one? Okay. Item number 6, unfinished business, we have none. And we have one last item, item number 8, adjournment, looking for a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Voyer with the motion, Loth with the second, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries, meeting ends at 6:11. Thank you.